Namaste and welcome to Pods by PEI, a policy discussion podcast series brought to you by Policy Entrepreneurs Inc. I am Kushi Hang, and in today's episode, PEI colleague Shreeya and Aayusha is in conversation with Ayusha Prasain on Roots and Routes, the story of community tourism in Nepal. Ayusha is a committed professional in the field of responsible tourism. The CEO of Community Homestay Network, she leads transformative initiatives that empower local communities and has extensive previous experience across youth-led efforts, multilateral agencies, and grassroots organizations. Shreeya and Aayusha explore how community-led tourism is reshaping Nepal's travel landscape. They discuss the operational model, economic impact, and challenges of scaling, offering insight into how authentic, locally owned travel drives inclusive, resilient development. Like listening to Pods? We'd love to hear your thoughts. So please comment on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to the show. You can follow us on Twitter at tweet2PEI and on Facebook and Instagram at Policy Entrepreneurs Inc. We hope you enjoy the conversation.
Namaste, I'm Shreeya Rana.
Namaste, I'm Ayusha Prasain.
Through this podcast, we explore tourism rooted in local ownership through a growing network of community homestays that create market linkages, empower local entrepreneurs, and build resilient, community-led tourism ecosystems across Nepal. Let's start at the very beginning. Community homestays have become a powerful concept in Nepal, but for many listening, it might still be new. Could you tell us what exactly a community homestay is and this idea, how did it start in Nepal?
First of all, thank you so much, Shreya, for having me here. So moving back to the question, community homestays, the name itself gives a little bit of what they actually mean, but we shouldn't be boxing them into the word homestay only and generalize it as just an accommodation, services, or facility. They're more like an immersive way to experience any destination. And also for Nepal, they're a unique way to promote responsible tourism if done right. They are tourism initiatives where local families open up their home to travelers, giving them an authentic, first-hand experience of Nepalese culture, tradition, food, and just daily life in general. It's not just about a place to sleep. It's also about being a part of community, even if it's just for a few days. So under Nepal's official community homestay policy, there is a requirement that at least 5 separate households come together to form a recognized community homestay. That's really important because it emphasizes on the community aspect. It's not just about single host. It's about a shared collective effort where benefits are distributed more equitably. Interestingly, the idea of community homestays in Nepal is not very new. It actually started back in 1997 in a village called Sirubari. I'm pretty sure many of us have heard the village called Sirubari. It's a beautiful hillside village with stunning views of Annapurna range, and it's home to Gurung people who have really rich cultural heritage. That's where the first model began. And it's been growing ever since. So as per the data, according to Homestay Federation of Nepal, there are around 1,500 community homestays across Nepal. But only 600 of them are officially registered, which shows both how widespread the concept is, but how much we still need to work on, how much room there still is to support and formalize more of these local initiatives.
That's quite a journey from Sirubari homestay to where it is now, and I think you've brought out a few elements that I will eventually get into and delve into in further detail. But let's start with the motivation behind bringing individual efforts together into a formal network. Now, what kind of strength or support does being part of a larger network, such as the Homestay Network, provide to these decentralized, community-led tourism models? What becomes possible when communities are connected rather than when they're working in isolation?
To answer the question, let me take you back to our own journey, how all it began, how it started in 2012. At that time, the idea of supporting community homestay actually came out as a CSR project for Royal Mountain Travel. It's our parent company. It was a small, simple beginning, just one house in historic town of Panoti. But even from the start, the goal was very clear to us. We wanted to support women's entrepreneurship and responsible tourism. And then something amazing happened. Other women in the community saw the impact and got inspired. One house became 10, and that's how Panoti Community Homestay was established. As of now, there are 17 households that are associated with Panoti Community Homestay. So what's the impact of being in isolation and coming together as a community? I think the ripple effects are bigger. The youth get more motivated. The training programs given by the local government, given by the organizational support, that get amplified to the wider community and not just to an individual. The community homestay also serves as a pioneer model of community homestays in Nepal, especially when it comes to giving women a central role in leading and managing tourism. So that success actually encouraged us to move beyond Panoti and also connect Nuwakot to our network. And then further, we went to Boroli, that's near Chitwan, and established a whole new model for community homestay. So a lot of these experiences have taught us that there's even a wider need to create a digital platform that will be easier for people to discover and inquire about the authentic community-led initiatives across Nepal. So that's how the Community Homestay Network, the platform, was created. And fortunately, in 2012, we officially registered as a company and we applied for Booking Booster Fund from booking.com. And that was a game changer. It gave us resources to expand our office, grow the team, step up our marketing, and strengthen our operations across the country. So I think when an individual initiative becomes a community-led or community-oriented, it's easier to market as well because the values they bring in can be amplified so much better.
I think that's where I want to delve into further. Not limiting yourself to just Community Homestay Network that you lead, but Community Homestay as a concept in itself. Can you help us visualize, how big this chain is, or how expansive is your own network that might give us an idea into, the way a model like this works in the real world?
Yeah, sure. So like I mentioned before, so there are 600 officially registered community homestays across Nepal. And these are just the statistics for the community homestays. There are a lot of individual homestays that are also in operations here in Nepal. So the concept of homestay actually is a widespread concept here in Nepal, but I think the way it needs to be marketed or how we are taking community homestays, I'm pretty sure you must have also heard often when people say community homestay, they take it as a cheaper alternative and just for accommodation, going there for a weekend, especially in the context of Nepalese youth or Nepalese people who want to go and stay in the homestay. It's more like cheap. They want to have local alcohol and not really an immersive experience, but just as a fun, relaxing element. But I think if we switch the narrative, it's easier to understand what value community homestays really bring in. And that's where we're working towards. Now we're working with 50 community homestays across Nepal. We like to call it community tourism because out of those 50, 40 of them are purely community homestays, but 10 of them we work with very skilled, experienced local artisans who bring their knowledge and share it with the travelers across.
And when it comes to new communities joining the network, how does that process typically unfold? What steps are involved? How do you bring a new locality or a new community into the board? How do new communities become part of this larger network?
New communities can become part of our network in one of two ways. First, a community is already registered and wants to join our network. And second is a community and it has a huge tourism potential and is identified by CHN team member. So once a community is identified by CHN team member, so when I say CHN team member, so we have product development team specifically who looks after this, or connected to our team as a possible member as a part of the network. The first step is to conduct a preliminary assessment to better understand the need and interest of the community members and existing resources. This involves interacting with community leaders, conducting group meetings. So we really need patience and sensitivity while we are going through this process, and also observing local dynamics, because as per the law or policy, we need 5 members from the communities to come together to form community homestay, but it shouldn't have negative impact on other community members. And how do they feel about these kind of initiative taking place?
Yeah, now that definitely opens up space to have a conversation on a broader scale. So looking at the broader implications of the community homestay model, not just the way we welcome travelers, but as a driver of tourism, economic growth, empowerment, and also local innovation. You mentioned earlier that while there are 1,500 community homestays operating across Nepal, only about 600 are officially registered. Still, it's clear that both registered or non-registered homestays are contributing in some ways or the other. So just drawing from your own example, community homestay as a model, what are the kinds of movement you're seeing because of this operating model that exists in terms of local empowerment, livelihoods, building on the economic aspect of being part of this network?
Even if I have to think beyond our network, what does community homestay means and its implication to the broader economy of Nepal, I think we have to think community homestays seriously as serious enterprise and not just something that's done for fun. So if you take them as entrepreneurs and respect the values of entrepreneurship, I think the broader implications are very transparent. Along with the economic prosperity, I think the women empowerment, youth engagement in the community can be also highlighted through community homestays. So if we have to talk about our experience, we truly believe them as entrepreneurs. We work with 50 community homestays and experiences across Nepal. And if we look at last year's data, we are so thrilled to share that there were around 7,900 travelers visiting these communities and doing community experiences. And some of the experiences are just day experiences, but most of them, they stay there for at least a night. So, just looking at the data from a small organization like ours, you can already see the impact, how it can create if we streamline it. So, I think this is a perfect platform to request everyone to come together to give a correct messaging of what community homestays are.
So, putting that onus on you, how would you describe what community homestays are in terms of its potential? So like you said, there are jobs being created, especially in terms of those who've been left behind, women or other marginalized groups. There is that potential to include them in this process. So maybe just talking about few examples where, you've been able to make such a contribution to a community now because they have an alternative source of income, you see some actual good outcomes.
For us, working with communities, one of the most important thing is we'll have to understand this is not their primary job. So most of our communities are dependent on agriculture, but subsistence one. So for many of the entrepreneurs that we are working now, sometimes this is their first time having financial freedom, and especially for women. So I think the financial autonomy is the greatest gift to everyone, regardless it's men, women, any generation. If we have to emphasize on that. But more than that, it's also financial autonomy giving the leadership, decision-making power, and the collaboration the communities get to do with their local government. So one of the key primary example that I would like to share is from the village of Bhada. So Bhada is situated in the far western part of Nepal. So before the travelers went there, the accommodation was basic. They were doing fine. But once the travelers started to go, they saw the potential, they started to invest. And this investment is not just good for the travelers, they are also actually beneficial for the local people because they started to install solar powers to have hot water, hot showers, have better guest rooms. So that's even helpful for the family itself. And later on, when we went after a year, we came to find out that they applied for a local fund opened by a local government, and they built like attached toilets. So the impact is once you make them entrepreneurs, I think they start to get creative about how they want to go.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible example to set. Once you have the economic power, then you make your own decisions. And I think people are capable of making sound decisions based on the resources that they have. Now, moving a little deeper into the model, one of the biggest opportunities here is collaboration, as you've mentioned. So who are the stakeholders that come together? Could you walk us through who the key players are, who are the beneficiaries, and also in terms of the skills and long-term opportunities it opens for them?
At Community Homestay Network, our philosophy really centers around collaborative planning and local leadership. So we strongly believe that our communities are the key to the experiences and products we are designing. That means community having ownership of the process, everything from planning and design to implementation. So there's a real sense of accountability and pride in the outcomes. So we are currently working with 2,000 entrepreneurs, to be exact 1,996, through community homestay and experiences. But collaboration is not just about the operation, it's also plays a huge role in experience and product development. So, for example, Ranjana Lipi and Ayla workshop in Kirtipur. So back at our office, we had this idea, which we thought was amazing, to have Ranjana Lipi workshop for the travelers. So we took this idea to the community, and the host also saw a great opportunity and potential in this experience. Since Ranjana Lipi is the endangered traditional script for the Newar community, and they really wanted to share that with the wider world. And they also thought if travelers come in and do that, maybe their younger generation will find it more cool to try that. So everybody loved the idea, and instead of developing it externally, we looked into the community itself. So we worked directly with chairperson of Kirtipur Community Homestay, and we had two incredible local experts from Kirtipur, Gyan sir and Budilal sir, who became trainers and ambassador of the experience. So this kind of co-creation takes a lot of time, and like I said before, a lot of patience, but also gives you a fulfillment because it's their culture and their tradition that we are turning into travel experience. So the power and the decision making should come from them, whether they want to include that as an experience or not.
Yes, I'm glad you brought up travelers. So we're now pivoting to the demand side of things. Can you give us like a brief overview of who the travelers are who choose to stay at homestays? Just a general idea of where they come from. Are they mostly domestic, international? And also in the kind of product that they engage with. Do you see them as more adventure seekers or more interested in culture, or a mix of both? A little detail on that. Who are the people?
We usually cater to international travelers, saying that we don't negate when domestic travelers inquire to us, but we also have this strong mechanism to refer them directly to the community homestay, because one of the purpose of our establishment was to connect international travelers who were not able to connect with the communities back here in Nepal, perhaps due to language barrier or technological barrier. So for domestic travelers, I think they always find a way. If we give them a phone number, they can communicate in Nepali language. So that's not our priority. So our priority is international travelers. So last year alone, we were able to host travelers from 45 different countries, and we're able to send it to 28 of our communities. So if we have to look at our data and then see the personas, what kind of travelers come in and book our community homestays, most of them are the individuals who love to explore and understand other cultures. But saying that, there are a lot of adventure seekers as well who come, like who go for trekking and have few additional days, so they love to know Nepal. Or sometimes they come for an adventure trek, but they want to feel what Nepal really is beyond the mountains. So I think it's for everyone who want to see what's Nepal beyond the mountains, or sometimes also see who live around the mountains.
And how are you reaching out to them? What kind of activities or experiences are you particularly selling to these category of travelers?
So as an organization based in Nepal, we can do something from our part, but we need a lot of support from the international community as well, and as well as the domestic travel industry here in Nepal. So we've been collaborating with 40 plus other business partners, B2B partners, local and international DMCs, destination management companies, who help us promote our products. And another part is to reach out to the B2C customer. We have our website and they can inquire about us through that, and then they can reach out to us. So there are two different parts to it, B2B and B2C, and we've been increasingly getting a lot of support from the business community as well to include our products into their existing itineraries.
Are there any specific activities offered as part of the Community Homestay Network?
So when I mentioned before that we work with 40 community homestays, so those 40 community homestays have 50 diverse community experiences that they offer to the travelers, and in addition 10 activities that are provided by the skilled artisans. So the 40 community experience activities can be hiking, cultural performance, cooking classes, biking, cycling, mountain cycling, and the activities through artisans can be pottery, pawa painting, and all these diverse activities, but all led by and co-created with community members.
And do the businesses also have a direct communication channel with the community homestays, or you guys stay in between the businesses outside and the community homestay? Are you guys the linkage?
Yes, we are the linkage most of the time.
Okay, so that's quite an interesting mix of people, activities, and collaborations, and it really shows how diverse and dynamic the model truly is. But of course, every model has its hurdles. In your experience, what would you say is the biggest challenge when it comes to running and scaling a community homestay model today? Do you think these hurdles come in the form of policies, come in the form of infrastructures, community readiness, or something entirely different?
Policy-wise, Nepal implemented a homestay operation code of conduct back in 2010, actually in line with 2011 Visit Nepal year. So the policies are already there, but the hurdles and challenges come when we have to speak about the implementation or monitoring of it. So one of the biggest challenge for running and scaling community tourism here in Nepal is standardization, ensuring sustainability across all sectors. So the policy implementation and monitoring has to be one of the difficulties as a private sector to operate in this sector. And every community in Nepal is different, as we know, geographically, ethnicity-wise. So they have their own culture, infrastructure, pace. So creating consistent quality while keeping the experience authentic is a delicate balance act. To tackle these kind of problems, we are also working and widening our horizon to work with local governments and other impact partners, because their support is key for long-term success, whether it's improving access, infrastructure, training, because there's something that as a private sector we can do. But I think if we take this as a collaborative approach, we'll be able to dismantle the hurdles that comes along. And another challenge is getting travelers to remote off-beaten path. As much as people love to say they want to go to off-beaten paths, but the number of days it takes, the cost it takes, that really brings a challenge. Once we start to build the itinerary for them, then it's already too costly for them. So we've been trying and looking out for ways so that we can thoughtfully package them, highlight the value. And the third one, and the biggest challenge for us working in this space, is the narrative shift. Community tourism has been always seen as a niche or charity-driven model, but we want people, especially within the industry, whether that might be someone who offers it or might be the travelers who come and take the experience, to understand that community homestay is an entrepreneurial model that actually will take some time to kick off, but is a long-term impact model. So we have to stop viewing communities as passive recipients of aid or tourism, and instead start seeing them as entrepreneurs and experience creators. I think that mindset shift is really necessary and can create a lasting impression or change.
Definitely. And Ayusha, as someone who's been leading this process of community engagement, I'm sure you've had some insights over the years. You've had some learnings over the years. Share some of those learnings. How have you been able to sustain through the years? And especially, what are the key elements that you go in with when working with communities that is so diverse?
First and foremost, it's about building relationship and trust. We can't just walk into community, have a plan. We need to really spend time with people, get to know them, really listen to their concerns, respecting the tradition and showing how we are there to genuinely collaborate. And another biggest lesson for us is participation and inclusion. We can't just walk in with the plan, like I said before. So it's not enough just to involve communities during the implementation phase, but throughout the process, how we involve them, how we understand their culture, help them shape the direction, understand how their ownership matters to us. And one of the other essential key lessons that we have learned is capacity building. So capacity building is very important because that's their culture and that's their tradition that they're offering to us. But then there's a specific time that the traveler goes into the community. So we have a time limit to it. Communities sometimes want to show everything, and sometimes they're so generous, especially for the experience part. Like it's a 2 hours experience. They don't mind giving them 3 hours or 4 hours of experience also. But time is money for both of them, travelers as well as the community. Capacity building is very important, and to skill them as an entrepreneur is very important. And actually we're very fortunate also to have partners who have been working with us throughout this process. Global partners like Planetera, who work like globally building on the community tourism products, as well as partners like intergovernmental partners like EasyMode. We have also been very fortunate to have support from local government, since our business model is we take the 20% of the total revenue, so the 20% is for our operations, and without the external support from different parts for capacity building or local resource mobilization, we will never be able to scale up. So meaningful partnership is very important. And when I say partnership and investing in capacity building, one of the key lessons that we have learned over the years is there needs to be sustained marketing efforts also. So from last year, we have started a Community Connect initiative. It's a marketing campaign for us. We bring in international journalists and travel agents across the world, show them what community tourism actually is, because they can see and understand something, but once they come here and feel it genuinely from the grounds, I think that makes a real difference. And fortunately, the journalist who came here last year, she liked the product so much that it was featured in Time magazine, and it was a big achievement for us, big achievement for the communities we work with.
Okay, now we're towards the end of the conversation. So I'm going to leave you with a bigger picture question. So tourism is evolving rapidly, often in ways that can put pressure on local communities, ecosystems, and sometimes at the cost of long-term sustainability. Do you see community-based tourism as a viable path towards building a more inclusive or sustainable tourism? And beyond that, do you also think that this also helps us towards pushing this narrative on livable destinations? Do you see the community homestay model as a pathway towards building a more sustainable, inclusive tourism industry in Nepal?
This is a difficult question, but my answer is yes, definitely yes. So this is a difficult question that we ask within our team also often, that how we do it and why we do it, because the conversation and the narrative about community tourism, responsible tourism is on such headlines that we need to be even more careful about how we approach it. We had a lot of conversation across the industry to create alternative destination, how a mass tourism destination should have an alternative destination. But now, as we think of it, as the concept is evolving, I think we need to think beyond that. To have an alternative destination for a mass tourism destination is one thing, but that's not the solution. What if that alternative destination also suffers from the same problem that we are trying to cure from? So this is very important to us. So that's where our partnership with local government is taking shape very strongly, because for the destination management has to be the top priority rather than creating an alternative destination. We'll have to understand that all the benefits we're talking about will mean nothing because the cost is also borne by the communities themselves. So when we talk about the travel industry and the benefits to the local people, we should also focus on the cost they are bearing and how we can minimize it. And that can be done only if we think about destination management. And that's where local government has to come in. And we are trying our best to do collaboration with them.
Can you think of models that worked outside of Nepal and that could be similarly emulated in Nepal?
Yes, we have a lot of example that we have learned from Planetera. We are also part of a global tourism network, community tourism network. So we learn a lot of good examples from there. And on a personal note, our founder Shiva Dakal is also inspired by Bruce Poon-Tip's ideology on responsible tourism. So Bruce Poon is the founder of G Adventures. It's one of the world's largest leading tour operators. So I think from that, we had the strong foundation of how CHN should shape like, what responsible tourism means to. But if we have to give an example, we don't even need to go very further. We've been working with EC Mode in Dhankuta. And there we are partnering with local government, local implementing partner. Isimor is there, Smart Pani is there. This is all under a high-grid project funded by Australian government. And we've been working from scratch to develop it as a responsible tourism destination. So there we started what was local government's interest, what was local people interest. So we bring in all the interest of the local people, try to co-develop the activities, and have been doing, this is our 4th year. So from 3rd year, we have started the marketing campaign. Before that, we have several rounds of capacity building program. So I think that's a beautiful example of how a destination can start as a responsible destination from the scratch itself.
Thank you, Ayusha. That was quite an interesting conversation. It's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you for sharing your journey, and I hope you had a good time as I did.
Yes, thank you so much. It's an honor and privilege to share our work through this podcast. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks for listening to Pod by PEI. I hope you enjoyed Shreeya's conversation with Ayusha on Roots and Routes, the story of community tourism in Nepal. The episode was recorded at PEI Studio, and our theme music is courtesy of Rohit Shakya from Zindabad. If you liked today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast. Also, please do us a favor by sharing us on social media and leaving a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to the show. For PEI's video-related content, please search for Policy Entrepreneurs on YouTube. To catch the latest from us on Nepal's policy and politics, please follow us on Twitter at tweet2PEI. That's TWEET followed by the number 2 and PEI. And on Facebook at Policy Entrepreneurs Inc. You can also visit PEI.center to learn more about us. Thanks once again from me, Kushi. We will see you soon in our next episode.